pain of waiting for games.
In February of 2019, Team Cherry officially announced a sequel for their beloved cult classic, Hollow Knight. What originally was a stretch goal on their Kickstarter for a second playable character in the base game.
Whoa, I didn't know Hollow Knight was like a Kickstarter game. Usually, in general, if like a Kickstarter game starts to pop off, that means it's just really good, because the game wouldn't have been made unless there was a bunch of people like wanting it in the first place. So maybe I need to check out Hollow Knight.
Morphed into a full-fledged follow-up titled Silksong, and since then, no one's really talked about it. Few games have produced a community as dedicated and passionate as Hollow Knight's, and for anyone who's played it, it's pretty easy to understand why. From the sense of wonder and curiosity that comes from exploring Hallownest, to the triumph felt when besting extremely difficult yet still fair bosses, the game is filled with fulfilling design that respects those playing it. It's a $15 title with more polish and quality playtime than 99% of games out there, and when considering that it was developed primarily by 4 people, it's hard not to be awestruck by its existence.
Dang, nice.
Playing it feels like being a part of something special because it kind of is. So because of all of this, fans obviously wanted a sequel. While it has only been 2.5 years since Silksong was announced, due to knowledge of the second campaign from the Kickstarter, as well as just general excitement for those who finished Hollow Knight still wanting more, for many, it has felt closer to a 4.5-year wait, which is kind of a long time. Now, in terms of game development, it's really not that long, especially when considering the size of Team Cherry. But for fans who really want more Hollow Knight, it has felt like an eternity, leading folks to grasp onto any crumb of information in hopes that it will give some indication of when it might come out. This sort of response certainly is not unprecedented.
I mean, shit, there's been a bunch of other games that people have loved, and the games take like way longer to come out than 4 years. Not to be like some gatekeepy asshole or whatever, but like, what was it? From, I mean, shit, Skyrim has been out for like years, like what, 11, 12, 13 years, and we're still waiting for the next Elder Scrolls installment. GTA 5 has been out for a similar amount of time, and it's, you know, it's ridiculous how long like it takes to make a sequel or whatever. Or maybe I'm just impatient, you know. Maybe I need to be more understanding that it needs to take $500, $600,000 or $1 million to make the next installment of that game, and it takes about 10 years to make it, you know, because these AAA monster games are essentially just big ass movies. So I don't know, maybe I need to be more understanding or whatever. I mean, Diablo 4 just dropped recently, and that game was like, what, 11 or 12 years old from the D3 to D4, you know? So there's been a bunch of games that have taken forever to come out with the next sequel. So it's understandable.
Recently, both Elden Ring and Breath of the Wild 2 had long periods of fans anxiously awaiting some sort of announcement of a...
And you know what's funny? At least those games that had like 10 plus years of like wait time between them, at least those games came out, you know? I mean, I'm still waiting for Titanfall 3, and just recently there was news that that's just straight not happening anytime soon in the future, all right? So, hey, at least your game came out.
release date or year. Really, while some communities are louder than others, this kind of anticipation comes with pretty much any property that people are attached to. I think there's a lot of value to waiting. It allows you to feel excitement about what's to come, which...
Yes, that is true. There is a lot of value for waiting for like the next installment of a game or whatever. But I think this is going to depend on like from person to person, but how long is too long and how short is too short, you know? Like some sequels come out and they're just complete utter dog shit. Like what was it? Dragon Age 1 to Dragon Age 2. I don't know the time length between them, but 2, from my understanding, was the absolute ass. It was horrible. I don't know if it was like a copy paste thing or it was just bad gameplay, but that game was bad. But what was it? 3? Dragon Age 3 was pretty good to my understanding. So it again, how long is too long for your game's next installment, and how short is too short, you know? I mean, with the current trend, to be honest, it's like games could probably use an extra couple years in the oven still. You know, how many times has a game came out and it's bugs on exploits on not even working and so on and so forth. So, you know, let the game cook longer. All right, let it cook.
which sometimes can be almost as enjoyable as the thing you're waiting for. The wait allows it to feel like an actual reward, making it stand out more and giving you a sense of fulfillment. I think this is part of why I find yearly releases to often be underwhelming. There's never a long enough wait to get invested, and as it leads to a series having so many games out there,
Yeah, but how long? Like, it doesn't take that long to get invested in a game, dude. Like, if the game's like base playtime, like with whatever side quest. I mean, you're showing Assassin's Creed right here as an example. Like, I was hooked from Assassin's Creed 1. You know, I was invested in that game. Like, I forgot how like many like hours I put into it. I was like super young when AC1 came out, but like maybe like 80 to 100 hours ish, I'm guessing, to get invested into Assassin's Creed. It doesn't take that long to get invested into a like a franchise, you know?
it's hard to care about any individual title because they all kind of feel the same. A good wait
Yeah.
helps put you in
Yeah, that's the case if we're in modern day and we're on Assassin's Creed 23. Now we're going to Japan, Assassin's Creed 50. We've gone to France. We've gone to Spain. We've gone to every other country in the world. And all they do is just copy paste. And in that regard, yeah, you were invested and then you realize what the formula is and then you're not invested. All right? The curtain was pulled. You see the guys cranking the chains and blowing the smoke and flashing the lights, and you're just completely immersion broken. All right.
the best mindset to experience something. It gives time to actually care, to be invested. And that goes for pretty much everything in life, whether it be waiting for a game to come out or waiting for your dinner to be ready. That reminds me. Okay, Google, set a reminder to take the enchiladas out of the oven in 10 minutes.
Okay, a 10-minute timer called Take Out the Angelinas.
Thank you. Of course, there are downsides to anticipation too, namely that it can often end in disappointment because we don't have enough information. Waiting for stuff when you have no idea how long you'll have to keep waiting kind of sucks. When everything is out of your control, it can be hard to temper your expectations and excitement.
Oh yeah, you need to temper your expectations because if you're like playing like your favorite game, the first installment or the second installment or whatever, there's this expectation for the next game to be bigger and better. All right. And even the devs will come out and say this, there's an expectation to do it bigger and better, but they don't know how big or how much better, how much gameplay difference that they want to do. And we don't know what the players expect, but you still want, like, let's say for instance, like Kingdom Hearts. I think in general, like Kingdom Hearts 1, 2, and like 2, and then like the zillion side games from 2 to 3. Like the base, like 1, 2, 3, I think it was like all right. I think 3 was like not that great, but like from 1 to 2 was like awesome, I thought.
Looking at these long, unknown waits, there seems to be a pattern with how folks generally respond. It starts off with earnest excitement, but as the wait gets longer and longer, that excitement slowly shifts into either resentment or indifference.
Yeah, the hype goes down for the next game, and especially if it's like some sort of single player game with like very story driven, the story's not complete, it left you on a cliffhanger, and there's only so much time that you remember the story or whatever, because most people don't go back and play old games or whatever. Like, that's just a fact. Like, if like say like my favorite game, the third installment is coming out, like if I really like the game, I'll go back and play 1 and 2 to get like updated on the story. Like, oh, I remember this. I remember how I felt on this, and then I'll go into 3 and like I know I'm like all caught up and whatnot. I think didn't Mass Effect kind of do that? Like last time on Mass Effect type deal. They did something like that from like hopping from each game to each game.
There's an oft-quoted passage from Patrick Rothfuss's first novel, The Name of the Wind, that relates to this idea.
When you wait a few span or months to hear a finished song, the anticipation adds savor. but after a year, excitement begins to sour.
Yeah.
While the timeline for every individual will always be different, it's hard to maintain excitement forever, and eventually, most people's interest will fall off in some way. It's natural, but unfortunately, it can lead to a fair bit of toxicity. This passage in particular comes up a lot for fans of Rothfuss's series, The Kingkiller Chronicles, because it has been over a decade since the last entry came out.
Oh,
in
dang.
that time, many have gone from eagerly awaiting the third book to attacking Rothfuss anytime he does anything that isn't related to writing it. There's a sense
Stop attacking the man. Jesus.
of entitlement that certain fans feel. They put dozens, maybe even hundreds of hours into reading and rereading the books. They spent time thinking about its themes, characters, and mysteries. They invested themselves in the series. And because of that, they feel that Rothfuss owes them. And unfortunately, some people lash out because of that feeling. Which, by the way, just don't do that. Personally, I don't think that Rothfuss owes his fans a third book. He's a creative person with many interests and callings, and he should be allowed to live his life how he wants. Just because he started something doesn't mean he has to finish it quickly, or honestly, even ever. Although I would be devastated by that.
Bro, he's got like some sort of writer's block. He doesn't know how to end his shit. Like, I haven't even read the books, but just from like the little spiel that I hear so far, it's like he had like a good idea for like a chunk of story he wanted to tell. And then for the third installment, he's like, how should I end this? All right. It's kind of natural to be like, well, what do the fans want versus what do I want? Do I want to do a cliche ending, or do I want to do a twist ending? You know, leave him alone.
While readers may feel some sense of ownership over his work due to how they connected to the material, at the end of the day, it's his story, and he can do what he wants with it. So if he thinks it's best to take his time, that's what he should do. With that said, I do understand and have personally felt the disappointment that comes from having no idea when a thing you care so much about will be released. It's painful when that anticipation you once found joy in begins to sour, because if you can't be excited right now for a thing you've been looking forward to for years, who's to say you'll feel anything at all when it actually comes out? Regardless of whether or not folks pass through the resentment stage, after a long enough wait, the vast majority of people will end up in a place of indifference or even complete apathy.
Yeah, that's what happens most of the time. And then by that time, there's like no hype. Your shit's not relevant. And yeah, you can do with whatever you want to your story and take however long, but like, you got to understand that people change. You know, what was it, every like 7 years you're like a different person, more or less? You know, with like something like going on for like 10 plus years, it's like all your original fans, you know, they just might not care anymore. They're just not even bothering you. And the people that like were like attacking you are just like these like crazy like people, like animals or whatever. So, hey.
Interests change, and at a point, there's only so much energy you can spend on waiting for something. I imagine a lot of us have plenty of upcoming games, shows, movies, and books.
Not really. That's the thing about like modern storytelling in general. In general, it's gotten worse.
That at one point were all we could think about, but now almost never give a second thought.
But to be fair, I say it has gotten worse because essentially every story has already been told, and been told in every which way, in every form. Yeah.
And I don't know. It's kind of sad, but it's also just how things go.
Yeah.
In the past few months, two properties I used to adore finally released projects that I had long convinced myself would never happen. The first was Psychonauts 2. I played the original around the time it came out in 2005, and
Bro, I remember this game, like seeing this game in like the video rental store or whatever, like what was it? Something Video, Blockbuster or whatever. And when I rented this, I was like, oh my God, this is like playing this as like a little 10-year-old kid is like scary.
Immediately fell in love with it. I found the humor, the characters, and the general concept so intriguing. As soon as I finished it and it ended with a tease for a potential follow-up, I was completely on board for a sequel. I brainstormed potential directions the series could go and what types of minds you might be able to explore. I thought about what the Psychonauts organization might be like and how they might help or hurt the world. And then A few years passed. Occasionally, there'd be a rumbling that a sequel was coming, but nothing ever materialized. And then a few more years passed, and then I didn't care. Even when the crowdfunding campaign launched, I still wasn't convinced that it'd actually come out, because especially at that time, a successful Kickstarter, or FIG, wasn't a guarantee that a game would actually be made. So it wasn't until about a month or so before it came out that I actually believed it was coming out.
Yeah.
The second was the
Like, you're not even a fan anymore, and it's like you need like a core part of your audience to be like that hype machine, but then there's also that other part of your audience where they won't believe it until it actually happens, which is what I think is happening more and more. Like, there's less like hype machine fans, and there's more fans that are just like, in general, just indifferent, and the only time they're gonna get hyped is like a week or two or a month or two before the game comes out, and it's like, oh, it's actually happening finally. And even then, it's like you temper your expectations, because why would you hype yourself up so much to a point where a game can never live up to your expectations? It's ridiculous.
TV adaptation of Brian K. Vaughan's comic, Why the Last Man. I got into the series near the end of its run during a time when post-apocalyptic fiction still seemed fresh. The humorous yet terrifying tone interested me, and after finishing it, I thought it would be a great comic to adapt into a movie. And apparently so did other people, as New Line Cinema acquired the rights. I spent countless hours thinking about what they might change to fit the film format. I even did a bit of fan casting, which, by the way, my pick for Yorick was James Rode Rodriguez, who played Sean Spencer in Psych. But then a few
Bro, he had like a silk robe on. I don't know anything about this story or whatever, but what?
years passed. Every time there seemed to be progress with the production, it inevitably stalled. Then a few more years passed, and my casting choices had almost all aged out of the roles. And then I didn't care. I only realized that it even existed because of a promoted tweet I saw the day the show dropped. As it turns out, both Psychonauts 2 and the Y the Last Man adaptation are pretty good. Psychonauts 2 might be the best 3D collectathon I've ever played, for whatever that's worth. And Y the Last Man is an intriguing modernization of the original story with incredible chemistry between its leads, at least from what I've seen so far. Who knows, it's early, it could still get bad. Or canceled, apparently. Damn. Both exceeded my expectations because by the time I experienced them, I didn't really have any expectations left. I thought they would never happen, and not only had I stopped caring about the possibility of them actually coming out, but also as time went on, I stopped caring as much about the original thing I had fallen in love with.
Also, the reason this is happening is because you're older now. All right? All of that shiny razzle-dazzle stuff that worked on you when you were a kid doesn't work on you anymore as an adult. All right? You need something deeper. You need something more vivid than cheap entertainment thingies, like shiny stars and rainbows and sparkles shooting off the screen everywhere. You need something more.
Became a bit disillusioned with each franchise and moved on to new passions. The versions of myself who couldn't stop thinking about Psychonauts 2 and Y the Last Man are strangers to me now. And in a weird way, a part of me wonders if that actually helped me enjoy them more. That certainly sounds backwards, but I do remember some of the wildly unrealistic expectations I had for each of them. I may have been too excited, and I think that's a potential downside of leaning too much into anticipation. You run the risk of falling victim to the hype. Whether it be expectations you set for yourself or ones introduced to you by others, when you spend a fair amount of time excited for something, you're gonna have specific expectations.
Yeah. Never get overhyped for a game or a story or a show, because you will always be let down, because that medium will never live up to your expectations. So it's easier to just be neutral on something and be delightfully surprised than it is to be like super hyped for something and then just be let down. That's my advice.
And as it turns out, there's a chance those will be wrong. It's impossible to know for sure, but honestly, I don't know if the version of myself who was looking forward to Psychonauts 2 or a Y the Last Man adaptation would have been satisfied with whatever came out. And I wonder about that a lot with various projects I once looked forward to, but then lost interest in after assuming they'd never happen. For example, if The Last Guardian had come out when I still cared about it at all, I think I would have despised it.
Yeah, you know, this game this franchise, like when I played Shadow of the Colossus, because I didn't play Ico before it. When I played Shadow of the Colossus, I played that shit like 3 or 4 times over when I was a little kid. All right, this game was awesome and still is awesome. I just by the time Last Guardian came out, I just didn't care about it. I was like, oh, okay, you get this big cat thing, and it follows you around, and you kill a little bunch of little minions and stuff. This doesn't really feel like Shadow of the Colossus like. I'm just like, oh, okay. I mean, that's not to take away from anything from The Last Guardian. It's its own game in its own respect, but I was just like not even interested. I guarantee if it came out like earlier, they do that all that crunch time stuff and put like more effort into it to, I don't know, come out with the same game but just earlier. I know that's like ridiculous sounding, but like I think I would have liked it and been like more willing to play it.
Because what I had built up in my head was essentially Shadow of the Colossus 2, which
Yeah.
The Last Guardian very much is not.
Is not.
I didn't even get around to it until years after it came out because of how little I cared anymore. And as
Yeah.
it turned out, going in not caring about it at all proved to be an incredible way to experience the game. I was open-minded and not upset that it wasn't the game I had wanted it to be. I felt a similar way about Final Fantasy VII Remake. It departs a fair bit from the source material, and I know for certain that the version of myself from 2005 who had just finished his third playthrough and was hoping beyond hope that a remake might be on the horizon would have had a fair amount of righteous anger about the direction FF7R ended up going, but me today doesn't really care. So I actually found the changes intriguing. Now, I won't say every choice made was the best, but I walked away mostly enjoying it, and I definitely wouldn't have back then. It's the weird thing with indifference. You inherently care less, and while that means you probably won't invest yourself as much in whatever you're engaging with, it also puts you in a spot where it's hard to be disappointed simply because of that lack of investment. I've overhyped games for myself far too often. I did it with Resident Evil 5 and GTA 5 and Far Cry 4 and Fallout 4, and it's a bummer because while I do think those games are pretty flawed, if I hadn't made so many assumptions of what they might be, I know I would have enjoyed them more. That's why as soon as DLC for Outer Wilds was announced, I did everything in my power to not think about what it would be like, because I knew if I hyped myself too much, I'd risk walking away disappointed, and I didn't. It's great. Honestly, hype is a bit of a dangerous thing, as expectations can so easily cloud our judgments. When anticipation is fueled too much by hype, that is when things typically go astray. To be clear, I don't think the best way to experience something you're extremely excited for is to wait so long that you stop caring anymore. But it is nice to remember that even if a game, film, book, or anything else really misses your window of excitement, there's still a chance you'll enjoy it in a different way down the line. What's hard about all of this is that there isn't really a great way to wait for things. And as I said before, it's even worse when you don't know how long that wait will be. You can try to manage expectations and all that, but A, it's hard not to be excited for something that you're excited for, and B, if you do push that excitement down too much, you miss out on the fun of anticipation. Ultimately, when it comes to a wait, there's a sweet spot. And whatever that amount of time is depends on each individual's temperament and life experiences. Regardless of how much time actually passes, that sweet spot is when you've had long enough to build up a healthy sense of anticipation, but not so long that that anticipation sours. As for Silksong, I think it's still in that sweet spot. Hell, I just finished most of the optional content in Hollow Knight for the first time, so I've still got a bit before things turn. As a fan, I obviously want to experience things when I'm most excited to do so. As a creator though, I know there's more to it. There's a lot of pressure when following up something that's beloved by so many, and you want to get it right. You want to make something you're proud of. And maybe part of getting it right is releasing it at the perfect time, but also in 30 years, no one will care about how much time passed between Hollow Knight and Silksong, unless it still isn't out by then. What people will care about is the game itself. And by the sounds of it, Team Cherry is doing everything they can to make it what they want it to be. And I think as fans, that's all we can really hope for. It doesn't make it any easier though. So if you're waiting for something, whether it be Silksong or The Doors of Stone,
or Titanfall 3,
or God forbid, Half-Life 3, cherish.
No, Half-Life 3 is not coming out ever, dude. Just stop that malarkey, all right?
That excitement if you can. Don't hold the weight against the people making it, and hope that some version of you will find joy in it whenever it comes out.
Nope. No joy for you.
Take out the Angelinas.
This video is sponsored by HelloFresh. I've been using HelloFresh
Nice.
for a while now, and it has made my life a lot easier. I don't like going to the store all that much.
How awkward does it have to be for him to just be like this? Because he's like this. He's like, what is he doing? He's like, oh man, kudos on him for trying to do that.
Or coming up with meal ideas on my own, as I'd rather spend time doing pretty much anything else, and HelloFresh has helped a lot with that. They have very tasty recipes that are simple enough to make, and doing HelloFresh for so long has expanded my cooking repertoire immensely. It's awesome to have so many more recipes to pull from now. Like, they have this amazing mushroom chicken recipe, and I don't even like mushrooms, but it's one of my and my wife's favorite meals ever. On top of saving time from not having to go to the store or meal plan, they also have a bunch of quick and easy recipes to fit with anyone's schedule. Also, everything is pre-portioned, leading to less prep and less food waste, both of which are great. Ultimately, I've just found HelloFresh really helpful, as it is easy for me to get overwhelmed by busyness. So not having to worry about what to make for dinner takes some stress off my plates, and puts good food on there instead.
I'm gonna have to try that maybe.
On your plate too. Go to HelloFresh.com and use code RASBUTIN14 to get 14 free meals plus free shipping. It's a really useful service that has helped my wife and I a fair bit over the years with getting new ideas for meals and saving time, so I definitely recommend checking them out. They have tons of highly rated meals, meaning chances are you'll find something you like.
Dang,
so
that does look good though.
If you go to HelloFresh.com and use code RASBUTIN14, you'll get 14 free meals and free shipping. It's a good deal and good food, so try it out. Anyway, thanks to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video. For all of you still watching,
this just occurred to me. The pain of waiting, I think, like, it has to be for modern gaming, since game companies are releasing less games and less sequels currently, because, you know, most of the games nowadays are like a live service and they want to squeeze every last drop of money out of a singular game. Like, the pain of waiting, it's like the pain is just so far gone and non-existent that it's just numbing. It's the numbing of waiting, because whatever, like, when you're like expecting a game to come out, it's like, I'm not even hyped for a game unless it's like a brand new IP nowadays. Because like I said before, most games are like live service. They're always online. Battle pass this, cosmetic in the store that, and it's like, I'm not even waiting for games anymore. I'm just like surprised that a new game came out. I'm like, what? A new game? This is unheard of. So like the waiting part is like an old, I don't know, concept for like old games. Oh man, what a time to be alive.
thank you. This channel is made possible because of my patrons, so big shout out to them, as well as a special shout out to Elfinrez and William Glenn 8 for being honorary.
Right. So this is a good video. I like it. I'm a year late, whatever. I hope if Silksong comes out, when it comes out, I don't know if it's out right now. I hope it's good. I hope you like it. And yeah, just like temper your expectations. You know, it's like he said, there's like a sweet spot for waiting, and sometimes it can be longer, sometimes it can be shorter. So it is what it is, man. But overall, I think it was a great video, and I want to see more. So that's pretty much it. That's all I gotta say. And take it easy, guys. Later.